Hey, what's happening? Hey, y'all get ready for the We Talking Fatherhood show, hosted by Warren West, owner of I Love Life, co-hosted by LaVon Wesley, director of Project Game, Thomas Washington, president of Fathers Collaborative Council of Western PA, Melvin L., director of Coalition for Father and Families, Dante Works, owner of House of Veterans, Super Bowl champion Mike Logan, owner of Purpose Vision, and Brandon Phillips with Pittsburgh Public School Community Outreach. We talking fatherhood, we making moves. Ooh, yeah. You see us busting these moves. Right. We got a whole lot to gain and we ain't got nothing to lose. Yeah, we done all took losses, now we just get W.
Welcome to the We Talking Fatherhood show. I'm your host, Warren West. Just wanted to start off the show by giving the purpose and the reason for why, I brought these guys to the table. And if you don't mind, I would like to read actually the purpose of this show because I want you to take it all in as we go on this journey of fatherhood. The purpose of the We Talking Fatherhood show is to empower men to take their seats as fathers by showing the dedication it takes to hold down this position and understanding the sacrifices we have to make along the way. We are called here to inspire change, even in a small way, all while finding solutions to problems that the next man can grow from. So this is why we're here, fellas, to get to know each other, for our audience to be a fly on the wall for our conversations. My name is Warren West, and this is for the people out there. I'm a father of 4 children, 3 sons, 1 daughter. Very, very proud father. And I'm doing this show because they give me life and they give me purpose. And if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you guys. And I just want to encourage guys like myself and the guys who are like the guys circled up here to embrace your charge as being a father, because it's a blessing. And once you embrace that walk and embrace that charge, you will see the blessings start to flow in your life. And so what I want to do first is kind of go around and introduce you to the fellas, because before we can kind of give you information, we want you to know who you're dealing with. And so to my left, have Mr. Works. If you would just let the people know what, and this is for all you guys, what's your motivation of being here?
If I had to answer that, and I will answer that question honestly, it was the lack of a father in my life. And so, it wasn't bad, but at the same time, not having a father showed me what to do when I became a father. It showed me what not to do. And so I think about if I had that other piece in my life, how much more of a childhood could have been more successful, more engaging as a man with a father. So, my goal is to help try to prevent that and educate people on that lifestyle and how we can help younger men and current fathers, do the best they can by having real conversation.
I want to get right into it, fellas. Fatherhood, right? Brandon just talked about how, the resources are very limited. The support is very low. Like, why is that? Why? Because we know the effect and the power of, 1, not having a father, and then 2, the power of the father being there. Do you guys have any statistics or anything that y'all can maybe spit off top that kind of aid to the fact that, fathers in the home promoting fatherhood is a key in turning our communities around?
I'm glad you said that, because I'm a numbers guy and I like to put statistics to what we're talking about so some people can get a visual of actually what's happening and not say, well, they don't know what you're talking about. And so statistically, what's been proven, and you guys can fact check if you like, 70% of young men come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with anger deficiencies come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. And then 63% of teen suicide either have absent fathers or abusive fathers. And so when you look at those statistics, when we talk about absent, we have to be clear that you can be a present but absent father. So in the suburbs, when you talk about absentee fathers, you're talking about fathers who are committed to their job, committed to the golf course, committed to work. And so they're present, but they're absent. And then you look at the inner city where they're just absent as in present. You know, so there's two different perspectives to look at when you're talking about absentee fathers, but these rates have, statistics come from the jail system, the penal system. The common thread, the common denominator of incarcerated men, whether white or black, are absentee fathers.
What does that statistic he just hit us with, how does that make you guys feel? Can you guys, any of you guys speak to that?
Being incarcerated at that high of a rate, I mean, you gotta think about it. And I'm not saying that it doesn't get done by the woman in the household or the mother in the household, but sometimes, especially when it pertains to your young son or a young man, the father's influence is major, right? So if the father is absent, where's the structure now in the household, right? So the structure is not in the household, and then they leave out of the household and go to school, right? So if you're not used to having any type of structure in the household, you're not going to be used to the structure that is in school, right? Mm-hmm. So academically, you're going to struggle. Now you're going to act out because you've checked out academically because what? They're telling you might have ADD, or you have an IEP, or you have some type of learning deficiency, or a 504 plan for emotional issues, right? So now, my father not being there and me having someone that's a stern figure, you know, and I can speak to this personally with my son. My son's mother could tell him to do something, and he's 3, so he's at his no stage, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as I hear that, I could just peek around the corner like this. Sorry, and then he goes does what she asks of him, and she's very on top of him. But a father's mere presence creates the structure that's needed for now when your son leaves the household and goes to school or goes to someone else's house. He has the structure to function properly and be successful. But we don't have that. So now academically we know this. If you're not reading at, I believe it's a 7th grade reading level by the time you graduate high school, your odds of going to jail is extremely high. And your odds of being on welfare are extremely high. I'll go over the stats. I actually used to have it in my classroom when I taught. And I would remind our kids of this. That's why it's important for you to be able to read, because if you can't read, your odds of going to jail raised by 70% or something like that. You know, so at the end of the day, that structure in the household is missing immediately when you don't have the father there, even with having a strong black mother there.
And I want to get it correct too with fatherless homes, meaning the father isn't present, because there are fathers that aren't in the present home, and co-parenting, which individuals don't really look at it either, right? So if you're co-parenting, which I co-parent with my child's mother, and just to your point, like, it's a different feel because the structure that I bring is something different than what his mom brings, right? Even though she has a man in a household, and you know they have a child, that what I bring to the table is like, okay, my dad's going, all right, teachers called me, principals called me, hey, Mr. Washington, this is what's going on, la la la. Oh, okay, cool, I'll be down there. So it's a different feel because they're like, oh, they're calling you dad. Oh man, my son's eyes lit up when I went down to the school when it was open, pre-COVID. But these are things. It's just like that structure, that feel like, yo, you're gonna call my dad. It's a bad feeling, you know what I mean? Like, oh, my dad's gonna put it on me. So I'm not saying moms can't present that same prowess and that same feel. It's just a different feel, and especially like young boys, young black boys, African American boys need to see that male. And it doesn't have to be a father. If you don't have a father, it could be your uncle, it could be your grandfather. It could be somebody who's a male figure and role model in your life, because you know, for whatever reason, that might not be that presence in your life. Your father may not be there for whatever reason, but that male figure is very important.
It's a different type of respect.
It's a different type of respect.
It's also a different, there's also different forms of social and emotional development that children will go through when a man is present. The way we interact and teach our children is different. So when we think of the language that we use, right, we are more inclined to ask open-ended questions, which will allow a child's mind to explore ideas that, I mean, may not necessarily be feasible or possible. I think you had mentioned earlier, I'll let my child ask me anything. I'll tell him some response. I give him some answer. And additionally, even when we start to think about how we physically engage with the children, right? Men are more inclined to be rough and tumble. We're more inclined to wrestle. And all those pieces help a child holistically develop. And so, Thomas, you made a good point. It may not necessarily be a father, but if it's an uncle, if it's a cousin, right, who has a healthy relationship with the child, then that child's development is going to be different than a child who's only having interactions, healthy interactions maybe with a woman. And even myself, you know, my parents tell people all the time, my parents were never married. My father wasn't around and did have a positive influence and encouraged me to have things such as a hobby. I tell people all the time, I didn't play any sports until about 9th grade. However, my father and his father, my grandfather, built RC boats, right, radio-controlled boats. And so I like radio-controlled trucks. So that's what I would do with my father. And consequently, my father often would be like, hey, are you going to look at periodicals? Are you going to learn more about your hobby and experience it in ways that maybe other children who might not have a father figure in their life to learn about whatever they love?
Well, I think it's about the roles that fathers play as well as mothers play. And again, talking about the restoration of the family, restoring it, making that cultural unit. And so, you know, I look at how inside my own household is, you know, I bring certain things, my wife brings certain things, and it's about how we do that together. And how what I can do well, I'm able to do, what she can do well, she does. And so therefore, you're giving the children an opportunity to see both parents working together, trying to make things right for them. See, you know, I'm of the opinion now, my father wasn't, he left when I was in 3rd grade. But my mother and my 2 sisters, my mother, my second mother, my third mother, in terms of discipline, in terms of structure, it was there. Now, I had 2 older brothers, but the one brother got married and he rolled, so he was gone. Then my other brother, he rolled, and I haven't seen him since 1968. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is, sometimes the women in our family can also hold it down very well. But it's about how the roles and how you play together to do that, to make sure things come out on top for your children.
Seems like there's a lot of power in fatherhood. You know, through everything you guys said, it seems like fathers have the power to encourage the change, to create the change, to plant the seed of change. And so how do we get fathers to embrace that role? How do we get them to see fatherhood as not this scary thing, but as something that, look, I'm in control, or I'm responsible for this young life. And so how do I get this guy to the point where I have to straighten up so I can pour everything right into this child? So how do we get these guys to really embrace that role and that level? Like, what are some of you guys' thoughts or some of your strategies on how we engage with the guys and get them encouraged about fatherhood?
With the stats that you shout out, I like to reverse the stats sometimes. First, make them aware of the problem. You know, if we're aware that this is a problem in our community, that's the first thing, you know, because we have so many things going on in our community. We may know there's a lot of fatherless dads out here, but how prevalent is this in our community statistically? Mm-hmm. And how does it really directly affect our kids in other ways? Because at the end of the day, to me, the first thing is changing the expectation. If I'm a black man who was born in a low socioeconomic type community to where we're low income or whatever the case may be, what's the expectation? Probably coming from a single father household, dog. That's the expectation, right? So when we do it, it's easy for us to do. Because that's the expectation. What's the name did it, he did it, they did it. They're expecting me to do this. So it becomes easy for me to do. Right. So we got to change our expectation. Like you said earlier, I believe, when we talked about middle to upper class, they might get away, you know, they might be absent by going to golf courses and things of that nature. The expectation in their community is I'm the breadwinner, so I can go out and do these things. I'm not absent. This is what a father is in these communities here, right? So in our community, sometimes me not being there and beefing with my son's or my daughter's mom is the expectation. So I'm doing what the norm is and what's expected culturally for us. So really acknowledging those stats and changing the expectation and using those stats to change the expectation. So most of us who have children, and even the ones that we want to quote unquote call deadbeat fathers, if you ask them, do you want the best for your kid? probably 100% of them are going to say yes, right? So convincing them that the best thing for your kid is by you being there somehow, some way, even if it's co-parenting, because now you being there gives your chance a 3 times more opportunity, chance to become a college student now, just by you being there. You in the streets, but you being there and providing a good example will automatically more than likely keep them or lower their odds by 2 times of being in the streets or whatever the case may be. So really drawing a direct connection, because I feel like as people, we need to know if we're going to change something that's culturally been ingrained in our community, why am I changing it and what's the direct effect of my change and how does it benefit me? And I don't think when we talk and we preach about being there as a father and things of that nature, we don't automatically be able to show them this is the direct effect of your 1 or 2, 3 changes you make. Right. And it doesn't have to be sweeping changes, right? It got to be gradually done, you know, and now you're providing a better opportunity for your child to be successful. You know, I want black men to understand this is the thing. We get a bad rap for that type of stuff of being absent, but statistically, black men are the most engaged fathers. So we can't be too absent.
And effective.
Effective, exactly. So imagine if we are engaged more consistently, and that goes back to what Brother Mel talks about when it comes to the relationship that you have with the mother. Because most of the times that we absent is because we really don't want to be around the mother because we're not able to communicate properly. We got some animosity that we didn't discuss. I didn't handle myself appropriately, or she didn't when we was in a relationship, right? So those are the things that we got to do and work on, is just changing the expectation. You know, in certain communities, when they have a kid, they might not like their relationship at all. But the father's not going anywhere because they agreed that we got to make sure we got all the resources and finances here for our kid. Right. I might hate you, but we're going to go to therapy. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because I'm not going nowhere because we have a child. In the black community, that has to be our expectation. It can't be so easy for us to get up and leave for whatever reasons or whatever the case may be. And we're able to do that so easily because culturally and systematically, it is ingrained in us to think the expectation for you is to leave. Mm-hmm. And part of that is finances. We leave because of finances too, because of what culturally you're supposed to be the breadwinner. So what I do, I'm gonna hide my face and leave. It's easier for me to get my own apartment somewhere and I can sulk on my own because I'm already beating myself internally because financially I can't support you guys. Right. So.
For me, what I've heard in the last question is someone spoke about presence, and I think presence is the first step. And then someone spoke about relationship, which after you have presence, then you have relationship. You spoke about black fathers are engaged the most. And so I have to question the fathers and put it back on their lap of accountability, ownership, self-reflection, self-assessment, because at some point, we've all had this story of fatherless homes. But at some point, there's men in this room who had made this decision that this is no longer going to affect my household, and I'm willing to break this generational curse. So what happened, and that might be another show, but what happened that us as fatherless upcoming men made that decision to say it stops here? And then I questioned the man, why haven't you made that decision? You know, and so when you can engage your children, but is it playing PlayStation all day? Is it just hanging out? You know, you can keep filling them up, but getting full is easy, but it's the substance that you put in there that the body breaks down a lot quicker. You can eat a whole lot of food and be full, but not be healthy. And so engaging is one thing, but what are you engaging with your son or your daughter with? What are you pouring into them? What are you sowing into your kid? But before you do all that, are you man enough to say, I'm going to own this? I was a father at 19 years old in college. So my mind was the streets. I'm watching my buddies go outside and hang out. I'm sitting here like, you know what I'm doing tonight? But at that point, I decided that. It became my decision. I had all the excuses that we all have. I didn't have a father. My father wasn't there. I did not. But I decided as a man, and I think we're wired. That wire is there. Just some people cap it and say, I don't know what that wire is for, so I'm going to rewire it this way. But the natural wiring of a man, I think, is instilled in men. So when you connect it, you know, I didn't know how to be a father, but it happened. It happened. And
what was your motivation for sticking and staying?
Because I didn't want my son to experience what I experienced. So although I didn't know, and I had the justification and the reasons to say I can bounce, because this was expected, this is what the culture predicts, I chose the difference. So at some point we have to have ownership in our responsibility as fathers. And some men just don't want to own anything.
So even though you didn't know, it didn't scare you away from holding that spot down.
No, because if I truly wanted my son to be different, I had to do something different. I had the reasons. The road to hell was paved with good intentions. I had all the right intentions, and I wasn't landing right all the time, but my intentions was to prevent him from experiencing what I've experienced. But I could have ran. So some fathers, to me, are just weak excuses.
But you also got to look at this too, and especially when you're looking at like people's mentality, right? Like there's a knowledge aspect that goes into all of this, right? So if you don't have the knowledge to be like to do better, right? Like you can give me a blank piece of paper and say you can draw whatever you want to, right? That's good. I can draw whatever I want to, do whatever I want to. But if somebody gives you an outline and say, "Hey, here's a piece of paper. It's already outlined for you. All you got to do is color in the lines." That's a whole lot easier because you already know what you're actually looking at and where you're going to go, right? If you don't have that, you don't know where you're going, right? So there's a lot of fathers out here that are like, I don't know where to go, right? They may have the ambition, they may have the draft, they just don't know how to get there, you know? So it's like continuing to have these conversations, I think, is very important. Understanding self and knowledge of self is very important. If you don't have that, then that's like, you're lost, right? Like if you don't know self, to be like, man, I want to pour into this child. Like I have to know self before I can pour into somebody else. I have to do for self before I can pour into my child. So like those are things that I believe that fathers really need to understand. Like, yes, self-ownership, very important. But if I don't have the knowledge, like I don't know anything. Because a lot of these young kids that I see out here, they don't know anything. And I was talking to a kid, and he came in with his pants low, with his Gucci belt on, and his underwear shine. So I said, why you dressed like that? Why you like that? He's like, oh, this shows wealth. I said, in what country? So I'm like, in what country does this show wealth? But this is his knowledge of what he's receiving from the media, from everywhere else. And it's embraced. So if you're seeing this, and you're seeing this as a father, right? And you're seeing this as a black father at home, not saying this is what you're going to do, but media is very important. Like media pumps either positive or negative, and either you're going to go positively or you're going to go negatively. It's very important for us to really understand, like, we have to bring these young men in, mid-age men, older men, because a lot of older men, such as, now I'm gonna say older, I'm gonna say seasoned men, such as, Brother L. He knows, he's been around. Like we don't ever mesh old, young, and mid. We never do this. Like it's a disconnect. And especially when you're teaching, when I was teaching fathers, I had older fathers in my class and younger fathers in mid-age. They all had the same problems, but they all attacked them a little bit differently. But it's still the same problem. It's like, how do we coordinate just these fathers understanding and having that understanding, one of self, and then two of how to actually get it. That knowledge is very important. And we're missing a whole lot of knowledge through generation to generation, and we're not passing anything down. So we're like, oh, wow, man, these fathers are messed up. Oh, wow, these chicks are having a lot of babies. Well, there's knowledge that hasn't been passed down from generation to generation that we're not passing down, or they're not receiving it some way, somehow. So I think those are things that we have to work on. Like for this, for our generation, we have to pass down the knowledge to the next generation so they understand, like, this is the way you should go. Don't say you have to go, but this is you should go, or you should look into. And
understand that we respond to trauma differently. A lot of times, not having your father around, as we're talking about, all of us didn't have our fathers around, that's trauma. So the way you were able to respond to your trauma was to make a promise to yourself subconsciously that I'm going to be in my kids. Like, you didn't know that, but that's your response to the trauma. Some people's response to the trauma is to be totally away from it and as distant as possible. So they have a child that's trauma. Oh, I'm flashing back. I didn't have a dad. He don't even know he's panicking. We're talking about subconscious things that you're doing here now. So I respond to trauma differently than this guy because I'm similar to you. I don't care. Even if I'm not with my child's mother, one of them whom I co-parent with, dog, my daughter is going like, I'm going to be around my daughter. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'll be a crazy guy then, so it is what it is. But at the end of the day, that's a decision I made in my mind because I knew, like you said, I thought similar to you, what if my dad was always around consistently? What kind of a guy would I be? Because think about how many times I had to mess up my first relationship possibly as not being the best father to figure out what I need to do later on to be a better father, right? So I'm learning maybe I could have avoided that or whatever the case may be because of, like you said, what could have we have been if our father was around? But that is trauma, and sometimes, and it's not a cop-out at all because once you're cognizant of the situation and conscious of it, yes, you can start working towards it, but how do I process the trauma? Avoidance might be a way that I process my trauma. So I'm not going to seek out information on it. I'm not going to go to therapy and things of that nature. Then in our community, that's not even that easy of an access. You know what I'm saying? If I got to go to therapy, it's because it's court order. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we got to also understand you're experiencing some trauma and we got to know in self attack that trauma space first before you can now have the confidence and that barriers out the way for you to be a present and a good father.
And I also think we all kind of touched upon it, but culturally, there's influence, right? So if you are a traumatized father, and maybe one time you decide to take your child to school, what does that look like? How do they respond to you, right? How many opportunities do places and spaces embrace men that look like us, right? When we say we're here to help, and so if you say I'm here to help, what's their response? We don't need you, most often, right? Rather than embracing and saying, well, could you read a book? Could you come in and be a guest reader? Could you commit to coming in once a month? Could you come once a week? Could you come every day, right? To be involved, because when you make that choice, not only are you influencing and helping your child, but you're also being a present father or male figure in the lives of other children. And I put some onus on the institutions that exist that are not always as embracing of men in our presence, and feel like there could be more done to embrace and engage men, because we're accepted for certain things, right? Like, you can coach, you can do certain things, but can I read? Can I do a science experiment, right? When you say, what's your intention of being engaged and how do you want to engage? I think that's where hopefully the conversation we're having can empower some men where they say, like, yeah, maybe I could go to the school. Or maybe I could do a science experiment with a child. Yeah, I could do that outside of school.
Do it right, though. If you come in and do it, and as a former, you work in the school and as a former educator,
sure,
do it right. You're right, because they will, and I've had some. And it goes back to what you're pouring in. So if I'm coming in and I'm trying to bring that gallon of water to pour into this big bucket of me reading in class, as men, we have to understand you have to present yourself properly too. Don't come in smelling like weed. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Don't come in like, but look, we will be mad. I've seen it. When they kick you out of the school for smelling like weed and you're doing a voluntarily type thing.
Well, how are you
representing your kid?
How do you approach that without turning that dude away?
So that's the thing.
How do you approach
so
that?
do you accept the father for who he is at that point in present time? Because we try to always put a square peg through a hole. Like that doesn't, like we're not always, they're not always tailored that way, right?
Absolutely.
Like everybody's not tailored. They might come down, with some saggy pants, Scully and a jacket, but they're present. You know what I mean? So I think like a lot of systems have to really come up to the times. Yeah, is it
come up to the times, but it's like you have to be respectful.
Yes,
that's your culture,
but
that's not everyone else's culture.
But what I'm saying is
You gotta approach the guy.
You have to approach
and let him know, like,
absolutely.
Listen, we love that you're here, but here's how you do this thing.
Yep.
We can't be so judgmental and so critical on each other. That's the issue. So you got guys out here who ain't had no dads, and that's all they did at the house was smoke weed, and they grew up.
But why are they smoking? Why are they smoking weed before they come to the school?
But time out.
Because of the trauma.
The thing about it is, just like I know, there's households that yo, that's all that's happening. When the kids is there. So what you think gonna happen when they grow up? They gonna be sitting there smoking with their kids.
Absolutely.
Like it's normal. So my thing for those guys, we have to be man enough to see like, oh, bro is missing something. Let me go put him on the game instead of throwing shots at the dude from the back or looking at him sideways and then going to the staff and saying like, yo, dude, smelling like weed. There's ways to approach these things.
Absolutely.
We could see the missing pieces with some of these guys. And so for guys who recognize that, man, bro's off kilter, you got to go and approach that and handle that in a fatherly way.
Come on now, you got to pour into him the right stuff, right, Dante? And so I'd be interested to hear from you. How would you talk to another brother, right, with that mindset of I want to pour the right elements into this person who's present, who wants to support? I'll say before you even go, I think part of it is like, hey, offer up a training, make sure they have their clearances, and then we go from there, right? But what are your thoughts?
I mean, as an
think
educator,
father-
that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, they're not gonna come to that. Like at the end of the day, I'm just being 100. They're not coming to that. Like you said, you're right. Pull them to the side, had a conversation. But like we were just saying on the side, it ain't even if smoking weed in my household growing up was that's every day.
Tradition.
But you want to know what I know? I represent my kids, so when I go I read at my daughter's school,
Right.
I'm not smelling like weed.
Right.
But you want to know why? I understand. Why is he smoking weed? It's not because it's a cultural thing in his household. He's nervous to come to the school, and he got to get high before he comes to the school because, like you said, he don't know if he's going to be accepted culturally there, how he dress and things of that nature. So I'm getting high to calm my nerves down to come here and do this for my kid. And then that's where the disconnect come into play a lot of times because we don't have, how many of us got the confidence to go in there and read a book in front of the whole class for our kids? Let's be real. I don't care if your kid's in 3rd grade or not, because most of our boys is a lot of them graduating with a 5th grade reading level. So they ain't
I can't
comfortable
speak for
doing that
nobody
type of
else.
stuff.
I was holding it down.
Yeah, but look, what was your mentality?
17,
Your
18,
mentality was
up in there.
similar, to his. But everybody.
But it goes also back to
Handles trauma
demonstration
differently.
because my mom, my raised, she really demonstrated the engagement in schools. Like I can't remember a time she wasn't like the parent that was at the classroom. And so I find myself being that to my kids. So when they were in the early childhood, when we started the reading with dads, when I walked into school and I got the looks like, what is you doing? And I'm like, what is you doing? My kid is up in here. I want to know what you teaching, right? So I imposed my will on them people.
You was confident enough
Right.
to do that.
And then I also had an example too. You know what I mean? That example was real critical in me being confident because my raise was like, she was dope for real. Like she was respected by the principals, teachers, in every classroom. So, when we walk in these schools, it's Miss Wesley, it's how you doing, it's respect. And so that for me, I was real proud of that. I still am because she still has that presence. She still does the same thing to the kids she's raising right now. And so, her being that example in that way allowed me to walk in confidence. Now, in the same way my mom was an example for me, his mom was that example for him. So how do we break those cycles and impart understanding and impart truth so we can say, hey, listen, you come in here smelling like weed is going to end up making your kid look like this.
Yeah.
Because that will get somebody to be like, I ain't even think about it like that. So all I want you to do is go home, get yourself situated, but don't come back here like that again because now not only are they going to look at you like this, but now you put a stamp on your kid. You feel me? So we gotta start imparting wisdom and understanding when we approaching these things and not just assuming like, well, bro, is this, that, and the third. You feel me? What you got?
I mean, I think I'm always going to look at this whole concept differently, and that's what we need here. I'm going to bring a different perspective because for me, fatherhood is a national issue. It's a worldly issue.
Absolutely.
And so when we look at the fix, it has to look worldly. It has to fit in every community if we want to end fatherlessness. And so for me, we have to take away the excuses because we are so built on reasons why we can't do it. And there may be, for me, if it's not mental health, then I think you can navigate this father thing because all the behavior that got you to becoming a father took some know-how, took some understanding, took some, I never did this, but I'm going to do it. And so at some point, accountability and ownership, that's where I'm back to, has to have precedence in a man's life. Now, once you own it, now we can help you navigate it. But if you refuse to own it, it's never going to be yours. And so what are we going to, now we own it. Now we own your fatherhood. And so if you can't plant a seed on concrete, there has to be a pot, there has to be a soil, there has to be a man, there has to be willingness, there has to be receiving it, and that's ownership. So many men don't have ownership because they're able to say the system. They're able to say my childhood. They're able to say the trauma. They're able to say my culture. They're able to say, and so once we take away the excuses and get down to we men.
That's a lot right there.
Now we men.
Like you just
ran out everything. That's the
Wait. I want to go in right there because it's a question on those lines. So what's the difference between reasons, excuses, and the truth?
So the truth is that you didn't have a father. That's the truth. And that's an excuse. Depending on which one you want to use. It's a double-edged sword. You could come with an excuse, but when you come back with the swing, it has to be truth. We let you get away with the excuse, but when you come back on this round, it has to be the truth. So once you say, I didn't have, and then we provide a platform, such as this, and then we provide the seed, and then we provide the water, and we nurture you, now you have to go back to the excuse, or you have to operate in truth.
Right.
But you can't, unless you lived in a cave all your life, you can't say, I don't know about being a father. Because there's somewhere along the line, some TV show you've seen where you said, that's the other side of what I've been doing. I wonder what it's like. But I'm not willing to own it.
But who says I'm inquisitive that way to even care what it?
Outside of mental health.
No, that ain't even mental health.
I'm
in my culture, right? To where my culture looks nothing like the Cosbys. I watched the Cosbys.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about living like that. I'm gonna just be real with you. I wanted to be my ghetto fabulous a certain way. I didn't want to be the Cosbys.
So was that a choice?
That was just how it was.
No, was it a choice? Because you watched the show.
It was
and then you said, I don't want to be the Cosbys. I want to be. So
yeah, but I could have said that I'm saying that at like 10 years old, 12 years old, right. To be honest with you. So my decisions and what I want changes. And then in addition to what you're saying, like you said, if we strip away all the excuses, I'm 100% on board with you. You're right. But the thing is, what Juan just said, what's the difference between fact, truth, and excuses? Well, the fact of the matter is right. I didn't have a father. But see, let's peel back. The peel back is what led up to me not having a father. You gotta understand, finances we haven't touched on yet is one of the major #1 reasons why black men aren't in a household. Because at the end of the day, you got issues that come up between you and the mother when it pertains to finances, got pride issues, cultural issues when we talk about the man supposed to be able to at least have, you better at least be able to pay half the bills, bruh. You know what I'm saying, at the end of the day? But ideally pay all of the bills and things of that nature. And why does that happen? But why do we struggle to do those things? Because systematically there are things in place that's going to make it not impossible, because you're a business owner and doing very well for yourself. So it's not impossible, but it's making it 3 times harder. And I might have had different traumatic experiences to you that might be worse. Or I might just not have the same wherewithal as you because I'm not you, bro. So one traumatic experience could devastate me. I'm not built like you. So you might be able to run through 3 devastating experiences and still be successful. But me on my own, one might devastate me because mentally I can't handle that. And it ain't my fault. It's the things that are put in place that got me here. So now I got to figure out how to take responsibility for myself, which are 100% correct. But I'm not even in the right mindset to be able to do that.
Mindset come from? And I want to say it comes from the environment, your home environment.
Because everybody going through the same thing. My neighbors is going through the same. We can't even turn to each other. Like, I might not have a brother Melvin next door to me that I can really sit down and say, yo, I'm going through it. And I know he's not going to judge me. He's just going to give me some game and some good information. My neighbor's going through the same thing I'm going through. This guy in this building is going through. So it's just like, and then it's the trick of how do we get them to want, and once they... how do we get them to want to retain the resources once they do get to your point of understanding, I need help and I want to be a better father? Because there's the resources out here, but they don't want them. We don't want them because we don't know how to get to them. So we feel a way about them, and then honestly, you get looked down on societal in a society as a man if you're going after these resources for the mental health, or if it's even financial resources. Think about it. I might be absent because I robbed somebody because I needed the financial resources to give some money to somebody, but I ain't want to stand in the welfare line. Right. You understand?
So that's an excuse.
Or whatever the case. You're right, but at the end of the day, it is, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but you want to know what? What got me standing in the welfare line was some bullcrap charge I got when I was a young buck and I can't get a job, bro, at the end of the day. And I've always been a hard worker. And I never robbed nobody a day in my life. And I decided to rob somebody and I got caught, bro. So what's the real reason why I'm here? Nobody don't want to talk about that. The real reason is too much work. The real reason is holding, like you said, universally holding each other accountable. That means our counterparts, our racial peers, and all that stuff. You got to hold everybody accountable, bro. It's not until they allow us to be. If we were able to say, you want to know what? Let's peel off and have our own society and rebuild our own society. We don't control everything that's going to be pumped. If I pump drugs in your neighborhood, I was born in the 80s. Come on, you don't think that affect my family? That's why I had to go through so much trauma. You want to know what? Fortunately for me, I was strong enough to withstand those things. But you want to know what? I got a lot of family members that grew up just like me that couldn't handle it. And that's why we got to really talk about what's the real issue. It ain't just only you recognizing you messed up. The real issue is, why am I messed up?
I love it. Fellas, this was a beautiful, beautiful start to a wonderful journey. I definitely want to give it up to the conversation and look forward to you guys tuning in once again. This is We Talking Fatherhood, hosted by Warren West. Hey, and we'll see you next show.
We talking fatherhood, we making moves. Ooh, yeah. You see us busting these moves. Yeah, right. We got a whole lot to gain and we ain't got nothing to lose. Nah. Yeah. We done all took losses, now we just get W's.
Please stay tuned after the show for a presentation on I Love Life.
What up, y'all? It's your boy Warren West, Coach Warren, aka Mr. Fatherhood. We Talking Fatherhood. This is the We Talking Fatherhood survey video. Listen, if you got something you want us to talk about, fatherhood is close to your heart. What I need y'all to do is, if y'all want to be a part of the show, if you want to be a part of our video segment, shoot me about a 10, 15 second video. Ask your questions, give your concerns, and me and my crew will tackle the topic. I want to hear from the people, and we'll do our due diligence to bring you some good information. So drop the 15-second video, ask your questions, give your concerns, and then we'll weigh in on it. Drop it to me at warrenwest412@gmail.com. We talking fatherhood, man. You feel me?
Yeah, we come in the name of the Father, so it ain't no way we can lose. Ooh, yeah. You see us busting these moves. You see it? We got a whole lot to gain and we ain't got nothing to lose. Nah. Yeah, we done all took losses, now we just get W's. Yeah, we come in the name of the Father, so it ain't no way we can lose. Ooh.
Out in the street, they call it out in the street, out in the street, out in the street, call it out in the street, out in the street, out in the street, they call it out in the street, out in the street, out in the street, call it
See, the thing about struggle, causes ripple effects in life like tidal waves, and you can either sink or swim. Treading the waters of poverty and racial discrimination as a young black man in the city is like trying to fly with no wings. And so when you have poverty, you will inevitably have people that will try anything to get out of it. With the lack of guidance and an uncertain future, our youth have been left to guide and lead themselves. Since a young kid, all I've seen consistently in our neighborhoods are crime scene tape, abandoned buildings, empty lots, and no hope. And to stop the violent signs, marches, and meetings don't seem to be working. I was once the problem, so I know in order to address this particular problem, it's going to take more than marches and meetings. It's going to take relationships and creative solutions. How do you see hope when there is none? You have to create it. And those that know how have the responsibility to act on it. Promoting life directly and intentionally in different ways will directly affect the child's and community's morality, showing them the doorway to accountability for life, not only for themselves but for the people around them. And it's for this reason and for the love of our families and culture, we are planting seeds of hope amongst the hopelessness in our communities by promoting love and life, because life is a beautiful thing. God gave me the idea to put focus on the great things about life and to take the focus off of the negativity and negative wordplay to get a positive outcome. Instead of promoting the ills of violence, we are promoting love of life and light. And we celebrate life to stop the violence and to put positive, encouraging, and motivating messages and visuals in the atmosphere of our neighborhoods. We use every engagement and activity to promote loving life. From t-shirts that bear the I Love Life logo to the youth basketball leagues that have over 250 participants every summer and winter with youth from the Homewood neighborhood and surrounding communities. This independent effort was established in 2015 for youth 5 to 16. In 2015, we teamed up with the Homewood Baseball Association, which I oversaw as president, and had an I Love Life parade through the community. With the community, our promising young basketball, baseball, and football athletes, youth players, and teams from the Lincoln community elders with support from Pittsburgh Public Safety, and escorts from our local fire station in the city of Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Corvette Club also escorted us in style, making the youth feel significant in a place where they feel they have no value. We believe a unified youth will mean a unified future, and working together as a team to overcome different obstacles in life, whether through sports or competition, will help shape that mindset. So in 2016, I Love Life teamed up with The Mission Continues, a veterans organization that is focused on community service, and the Homewood Community Sports to bring a new flavor and fun of competition to the neighborhood. The I Love Life team obstacle course challenged the area youth to complete 14 obstacles as a team with the best times. The obstacles were big, but together they overcame. Planting those seeds of hope and recognizing the efforts of all, we were able to successfully unify youth with the purpose. Since 2017, we've been working on bridging the gap between the community and local law enforcement. Using basketball as a doorway for change, we do an annual community versus police basketball game. This is a fun way we can get these guys in the same place to build and hopefully create a pathway to change. This effort is supported by everyone from the senator to the state rep and local community groups, showing the love and creating solutions. For Father's Day 2019, we teamed up with the Homewood Baseball to do an annual Father's Day softball game, which brought fathers from all over the city together to play and break bread. An independent effort that came from the love and respect we have for each other. Unifying fathers is the jumpstart our communities need. To see hundreds of black fathers and black youth proud to wear and promote I Love Life is only by God's grace. This is the mission. This is the intention. But this is only the beginning. Unifying our communities won't come from the top. It will come from the children. At the same time, fathers are essential to saving our children, and our communities won't change if the message is the same. So I present I Love Life as the doorway to hope and change for our communities. From a father's heart and in the spirit of brotherhood, I call on everyone who loves life to join the movement.
Yeah, we come in the name of the Father, so it ain't no way we can lose.
Ain't no way I'ma lose, cause I was born to win. Born to men, born to sin, but I'm born again. Street life got them going down, fallen men. The street lies had you running down on your friends. Keep both eyes open, watch me win. Whole squad 2K, created men. And I ride with the God who created men. Never mind the small stuff, that's how you dodge the pen. I'm a king in this world, you can't lock me in. I keep the keys and the jewels, you better lock me in.